Hola Nigel. ¿Cómo
Hola,
estás?
Fen. Muy bien. ¿Y tú?
Más o menos bien ahora. Ah, hoy ah, vamos a hacer la gramática en contraseña y ahora voy a compartir mi pantalla. Bueno, ah, puede ver,
Perdón.
puedes
Ah,
ver la pantalla con el video. Sí. Ah,
You have been using the verbs ser and estar from the very beginning of your Spanish studies, whether it was to describe some inherent quality about yourself, like soy estudiante, or to talk about your nationality, soy estadounidense. And also, whenever you wanted to share how you were feeling on a certain day, estoy muy emocionada or emocionado. This presentation will review the uses of ser and estar that you are already familiar with, and it will also present you with new uses to talk about life and experiences in a greater variety of ways. Let's dig in and let's talk about the verb ser first. Ser is used to describe inherent qualities. Those inherent qualities could be things like origin. Francisco Jiménez es mexicano-americano. It could also be a profession. Francisco Jiménez es autor. Shapes and sizes are also inherent qualities. Las botas de Francisco eran negras y puntiagudas. You could, of course, dye the shoes green instead of black, and their inherent quality would then be green. Then you would say, las botas son verdes. Personalities are also inherent qualities. Francisco Jiménez es alegre. Francisco is a happy person. Of course, he may have bad days where he's feeling sad, like everyone does, but his nature is that of a happy person. Finally, the verb ser is also used to indicate dates. Era el 9 de septiembre. And notice that when you state when or where an event occurs, you use ser, not estar. La presentación del libro es a las 8 de la noche. Es en la biblioteca de la ciudad. Now on to the verb estar. Estar is used to express circumstances or states, which might be how someone is feeling at a given moment or where something is located. El padre de Francisco está nervioso. Towards the end of the chapter, you probably sensed that dropping off Francisco at the university altered his father's emotional state. He wasn't nervous before, but now he was. So you use estar to describe how he is feeling. Los otros estudiantes están bien vestidos. Sometimes they are well dressed, sometimes they are not, but their current circumstances find them well dressed, and therefore estar is the appropriate verb to use. And as you learn in the story, their spiffy outfits sure make an impression on Francisco. Also, as you recall, the magnificent university buildings got to impress the whole family. Más atrás estaba la iglesia de la misión. Here, the location of an object is not an inherent quality. The location doesn't define the object. Location is a circumstance. The church happens to be in its current location, but would still be the same church if it were located on the next corner. There, estar is used to express location. So now that you understand how ser and estar work, let's look at some adjectives that can be used with both verbs and see how their meaning changes depending on the verb. First, let's look at these two sentences. La melena de Francisco es larga, and la melena de Francisco está larga. When a speaker says, La melena de Francisco es larga, what do we know? We know that Francisco's hair is long. We don't know how he likes to wear it or how he may change his look from time to time, but the speaker's use of the verb ser tells us that in his or her view, Francisco's hair is long. The inherent quality is long. Now, let's compare it with La melena de Francisco está larga. Because the speaker uses está, we immediately know that Francisco's hair is longer than it usually is. It may or may not be long by most objective standards, but it is definitely long for Francisco. The speaker is noting the state of Francisco's hair, not describing an inherent quality. Let's take a look at another example. Listo or lista. You have learned this adjective with estar, meaning to be ready. That is a circumstance. When listo or lista is used with ser, however, it describes the inherent quality of being shrewd or clever. These are other examples of adjectives whose meaning is different depending on the use of ser or estar. Make sure to familiarize yourself with them to be able to express more nuanced meanings about people's traits and feelings as well as circumstances. And finally, remember that most of the forms of ser are irregular, as are the present and preterite forms of estar. Well, you did great. Let's see how much you remember. Can you match the correct use of ser and estar with each sentence? 1. Panchito era un niño inmigrante. Well, it's clear from the story that Francisco identifies himself with the immigrant experience. While his situation didn't last forever, it surely did up until he went to college, and it came to define decisively the person he is today. So, identidad it is. How about the next one? 2. El vestido de la madre de Francisco estaba desteñido. Right. Condición o estado. Why? Because it was new when she first got it, but most likely using it over and over changed or altered its condition. 3. El cabello de Francisco era moreno. This one is easy. It's talking about color, which is an inherent quality or attribute of an object. Next. Era el domingo 9 de septiembre de 1962. You've got it. Date, fecha. And last but not least, la iglesia de la misión estaba detrás de la glorieta. Excellent. That's clearly a statement about location, ubicación. Terrific. Now you have the tools to express more nuanced meanings about traits, circumstances, and feelings. Y eso es todo.
Bien repaso.
Bueno, podemos este es el resumen del video. Con ser y estar. podemos tomar, no sé, turns con leer eso. Both ser and estar mean to be in English. The context and intended meaning will help you determine which verb to use. Panchito es un estudiante inmigrante. Panchito is an immigrant student. Panchito está triste por abandonar a su familia. Y Panchito is sad to leave his family behind.
Ser is used to describe inherent qualities that identify someone or something, such as origin, profession, shape, size, and personality. Francisco Jimenez es un autor Mexico-Americano. Francisco Jimenez is a Mexican-American author. Las botas de Francisco eran negras y puntiagudas. Francisco's boots were black and pointed.
Ser is also used to indicate dates, times, and event location. Son las 5 de la tarde. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Era el domingo 9 de septiembre de 1962. It was Sunday, September 9th, 1962. La fiesta es en mi casa. Party is at my house.
Estar, on the other hand, is also used to express circumstances or states. El padre de Francisco está nervioso. Francisco's father is nervous. Los otros estudiantes están bien vestidos. The other students are well dressed.
Notice the use of estar when the speaker compares the person's or object's current state with a previous memory of it or how it is typically defined. Francisco está delgado. Francisco is thin. Las botas de Francisco están gastadas. Francisco's boots are worn.
Estar is also used to indicate location of places, people, and objects. Más atrás estaba la iglesia de la misión. Further back was the mission church. El encargado estaba sentado tras una pequeña mesa. The attendant was sitting behind a small table.
Some adjectives can take either ser or estar, but the meaning is different. La melena de Francisco es larga. Francisco's hair is long. La melena de Francisco está larga. Francisco's hair has gotten long. In the first example, the speaker describes Francisco's hair as an inherent quality, a physical trait that identifies him. The implication could be that the long hair is part of his look. Someone could also be making a simple description. Francisco has long hair. On the other hand, in the second example, está larga suggests that it's longer than usual. The speaker has noticed a change in the length, and therefore a star is used.
Go
ahead.
Other adjectives whose meanings vary are ser bueno, to be a good person or to be a good quality, to be of good quality. Ser despierto, to be alert, to be smart. Ser interesado, to be self-interested, to be selfish. Ser listo o lista, to be shrewd, to be shy. Ser loco, to be mentally unstable, to be crazy. Estar bueno, to be tasty, to be good looking. Estar despierto, to be awake. Estar interesado, to be interested in something or someone. Estar listo, to be ready. Estar loco, to show crazy reactions or behavior toward a situation or circumstance.
No pienso que necesitamos hacer eso.
Sí.
Entonces, ahora podemos trabajar en la sección de aplicar y si tenemos preguntas o algo, podemos hablar sobre eso.
Empecemos con gramático 1
Sí, pienso
o
que
gramática. ¿Quieres leer actividad 2 en gramático 1?
actividad como la preparar para gramática 2
Sí. No, aplicar.
o actividad 2.
Actividad 2, sí.
Sí. Ah, cuando dice Francisco Blank estudioso.
Era. Ya,
Sí, sí.
sí.
Pienso que
Ah,
es correcto. Sí, sí.
sí. Francisco y Roberto eran esperables. ¿Sí?
Separable. Sí, por supuesto. La hora del cuento con su tío Mauricio. ah, la hora era alrededor del fuego.
Sí, sí.
Sí.
Ah,
Francisco. Tú.
Francisco ah, estaba tenso por alejarse de su familia.
Ahora en la universidad, Francisco es estudiante de la universidad.
Los otros estudiantes están bien vestidos.
Sí. Kenna Hall está detrás de Walsh Hall.
Ah, sí. Francisco será un autor famoso.
Sí. Francisco será profesor en la universidad.
Sí. Sus botas no estarán gastadas.
Sí. Oh,
Todo correcto.
claro. Oh, sí. Bueno. ¿Cómo han sido sus clases en los primeros semanas ahora?
Repitan, por favor.
¿Cómo están sus clases?
Bien, bien.
Sí.
Muy bien. No difícil ahora. am,
Sí, es el primero, es el inicio. Hay, ¿cuál clase va a ser lo más difícil?
¿Quieres leer actividad ah, 5? Oh, no, no, no. 4, 4.
Sí, sí. El párrafo.
Sí.
Ah, sí. Francisco creció en Estados Unidos durante las décadas 1940 y 1960. Durante esta época, Estados Unidos creó el programa llamado Programa Bracero, Mexican Farm Labor Program. Ah, ah,
Es,
es-
sí. Este programa fue un acuerdo entre México y Estados Unidos que permitió el cruce legal y temporal de ah, am, 4.5 millones de trabajadores de México a Estados Unidos.
Comenzó en 1942 y terminó en 1964. El programa es el ejemplo más importante que existe en el mundo de los programas de trabajadores temporales.
Los braceros eran ciudadanos mexicanos que migraron temporalmente a Estados Unidos para ayudar a solucionar a la escasez shortage de mano de obra durante y después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
¿Sí? Los braceros trabajaron en granjas y campos, minas y ferrocarriles. El programa, am, mm, el programa fue detenido cuando los ciudadanos estadounidenses regresaron al país después de la guerra.
Muchos decían que los braceros eran responsables por los bajos salarios de los trabajadores estudiantes estud- wait,
Sí.
estadounidenses.
Al fin del programa, los inmigrantes es- fueron expulsados de Estados Unidos y tuvieron que regresar a México. Sí, y todo es correcto.
¿Quieres mirar la presentación para um, gramática 2 preparar?
Sí. Yo puedo.
We all tell stories. Stories connect us with our friends and family as well as with our lived experiences. Most often we tell stories about things that have happened to us. In Spanish, telling stories about past events requires the use of the preterite and the imperfect. In this presentation, you will deepen your knowledge of how to narrate personal anecdotes and past life experiences. Let's get started. You may remember that the preterite describes actions or events that are complete. What you communicate when you use the preterite is that the action is a completed event. You look at it as having a starting point and an end point in the past. It most often answers the question, ¿Qué pasó? What happened? So, let's look at Trampita from Viaje a la Universidad and ask the question, ¿Qué pasó? Se deslizó. He slid. Ató la puerta. He tied the door shut. Encendió el motor. He started the engine. Retrocedió. He backed out. Empezó a alejarse. He began to drive away. These are the actions, the events of this part of the narrative. When we add some additional context, we end up with this sentence. Trampita se deslizó en el asiento del conductor, ató la puerta, encendió el motor y lentamente retrocedió para salir del estacionamiento y luego empezó a alejarse. Do you feel the story being pushed along by each of these preterite forms? And then what happened? And then what? And then what? But that's just describing a series of events. It's not really a story. Stories are much richer than that because the speaker provides background for the actions, adds some color, some feeling, creates an ambiance. This is the function of the imperfect. The imperfect looks at the past differently. Instead of focusing on the completed nature of the verb, it focuses on the action itself. It focuses on the ongoing nature of the action. Jimenez wrote in his story, "Me sentía emocionado y nervioso mientras me alistaba para salir con rumbo norte en dirección a Santa Clara. I felt excited and nervous while getting ready to head north in the direction of Santa Clara." So, what happened? ¿Qué pasó? Nothing. Nada. Here, Jimenez is providing additional information. I was feeling excited. I felt nervous. The imperfect does not move the story along. It provides details and describes the situation and background. Jimenez could also have written, "Me sentí emocionado y nervioso cuando me alisté para salir con rumbo norte en dirección a Santa Clara." Now, using the preterite, Jimenez's focus would be on completed, whole actions. You would interpret these verbs as events. Instead of "me sentía emocionado," I felt or was feeling excited, he would be conveying, I got excited. Excitement happened. Do you feel the difference? Now let's look at how some verbs are translated differently into English depending on the speaker's perspective and whether he or she uses the preterite or the imperfect. Let's take conocer. In the preterite, conocer is usually translated as meet. It focuses on the beginning of the action of getting to know someone. In the imperfect, the translation is to know a person or place. Another example is saber. In the preterite, saber is generally translated as to find out. It focuses on a moment in time of knowing. In the imperfect, it means to know a fact. At first glance, it seems as though these verbs change meaning depending on whether they are used in the preterite or the imperfect. However, if you think of the preterite as those actions that are perceived as completed, and the imperfect as emphasizing the duration of the actions without worrying about their end point, then it becomes clear that each tense offers a different perspective in which the speaker views these events. Great. You learned new ways to express more nuanced ideas in the past. Let's review. Match the appropriate use of the preterite or the imperfect to each sentence. Let's take a look at the first one. The verb estaba is in the preterite. Do you remember one use of this tense? That's right. It expresses action without beginning or end. The time frame is that day, ese día, but there's no indication when this event begins or ends. Next, su casa tenía el piso de tierra. It's describing a place, a scene. You've got it. Number 3, de niño, Francisco se levantaba muy temprano para ir al campo. The verb is in the imperfect, and the sentence is describing what Francisco used to do when he was young. It's a habitual action, of course. And finally, escuchó el ruido y salió corriendo. Looks like you have 2 consecutive actions in the preterite. These are single actions that form a sequence as they take place one after the other. It's a sequence of events. Nice job. Now you have the tools to narrate personal anecdotes and past life experiences. Y eso es todo.
Podemos ver el resumen otra vez. Both preterite and imperfect are past tenses, and they can be used to refer to the same period of time in the past. The difference between the preterite and the imperfect is how the speaker views those past events, actions, or states.
The preterite emphasizes the beginning and end of an action in the past. The action is viewed as complete. Often, the preterite is used to narrate a sequence of discrete events. It tells you what happened. Trampita se deslizó en el asiento del conductor, ató la puerta, encendió el motor y lentamente retrocedió para salir del estacionamiento y luego empezó a alejarse. El coche petardeó, dejando una estilla de humo gris por detrás. Yo me quedé solo de pie sobre la acera y me despidí con la mano siguiendo con la vista al de Soto hasta que dobló a la derecha hacia el camino real y despacio. Trampita slid into the driver's seat, tied the door down with a rope, started the motor, and slowly backed out of the parking space and then began to drive away. The car backfired, leaving a trail of gray smoke behind. I stood alone on the sidewalk and waved goodbye, watching De Soto until it turned right toward El Camino Real and disappeared.
The imperfect tense focuses on actions or states with no specific beginning or end mentioned. What's important is the action itself, not when it happened or when it stopped. Me sentía emocionado y nervioso mientras me alistaba para salir con rumbo norte en dirección a Santa Clara. I felt excited and nervous while I was getting ready to head north in the direction of Santa Clara.
In the story, the imperfect is often used to set the scene or give background information. Su fachada de estilo español tiene tallidas estudias de madera de santos a ambos lados y dos grandes puertas de madera castaño oscuro en la entrada central, con otros dos más pequeñas ubicadas una a cada lado. Hacia la izquierda había un campanero. Its Spanish-style face had carved wooden statues of saints on both sides and two large dark brown wooden doors at the central entrance, with the two other smaller ones located on either side or east side. To the left, there was a bell tower.
The imperfect is often used to express habitual or recurrent actions in the past. Lo llamaba Toto porque cuando yo estaba aprendiendo a hablar no podía pronunciar su nombre Roberto. I used to call him Toto because when I was learning to speak, I couldn't pronounce his name, Roberto.
In narration, both preterite and imperfect often appear in the same sentence. The imperfect describes an ongoing action or state, while the preterite refers to completed actions. Llegamos a la universidad y entramos por el portón principal, el cual estaba franqueado por altas palmeras. Frente a nosotros se encontraba una cruz grande de madera de aproximadamente súbitamente viente peste alto en el centro de una glorieta y unas cuantas yardas más atrás estaba la iglesia de la Misión. We arrived at the university and entered through the main gate, which was flanked by tall palm trees. In the front of us, there was a large wooden cross approximately 20 feet high. In the center of a roundabout, a few yards further back, was the mission church.
Any verb can be used with the preterite or the imperfect. Thus, the use of the preterite and the imperfect is determined by how the speaker views the situation. For example, in the previous example from Jimenez, me sentía emocionado y nervioso mientras me alistaba para salir con rumbo norte en dirección a Santa Clara. I felt excited and nervous while I was getting ready to head north in the direction of Santa Clara. It's clear that Jimenez.
It's clear that Jimenez wants to put emphasis on his feelings without viewing them as completed events or complete. He's more concerned with connecting with the reader on an emotional level, but Jimenez also could have said, me sentí emocionado y nervioso cuando me alisté para salir con rumbo norte en dirección a Santa Clara.
In this alternate version, Jimenez would have only changed his perspective in which those actions are presented, with less emphasis on how he was feeling and more emphasis on the precise moment in which the feeling of excitement took place. Thus, to tell your story, you have to think about the perspective you want to use to describe the events as completed or not at a certain point in the past. No pienso que necesitamos hacer eso. Pienso que ahora es un buen tiempo para terminar la grabación.
Sí.
Entonces, muchas gracias, Nigel.
Gracias, Ben.